Let's look at some context. Donald Trump admitted to grabbing women's vaginas. Harvey Weinstein apologized and then went away. Kevin Spacey apologized and then went away. Louis C.K. apologized and was lauded for his honesty. Al Franken apologized and said he's going to keep his seat or work to keep his seat. And Roy Moore admitted to asking some mothers for permission to date their daughters. And by the way, if you have to ask permission, it's not a date. It's rape, and his day is coming. So what we have now is a congressman who's been accused and has denied it. And there's an ethics investigation. He did what he should do now, which is rightly step down from judiciary because he shouldn't be connected to any law enforcement committee. I feel it's the same thing that Donald Trump should do while he's being investigated. He's being investigated for Russiagate and not being investigated for his admission of sexually harassing women, and yet he still gets to do his job.
So what about the question of degree? So we talk about, like, I am someone who does not believe that what Al Franken allegedly did, what John Conyers allegedly did, at least for what we know right now, should in any way be equated with Roy Moore, who, for everything that we see, is a pedophile.
That's right.
So, what is the tactic? Like, what is Nancy Pelosi and what are other Democrats thinking when they turn the conversation away from Roy Moore, who might be walking into the Senate within the next couple of weeks, to John Conyers?
No, Spencer nailed it. This is a jockeying within the Democratic Party. They want that seat because if the Dems take control of the House, John Conyers becomes incredibly powerful over the judiciary. So the Democrats are positioning themselves to take a moral high ground so they can go after the Republicans in the next election.
So then who takes over for John Conyers?
What's the Congresswoman from New York who came out first? That's a signal. I forget who's the ranking member because now it's a white Democrat. I forget, but think about this. Many of the CBC, the older ones, Danny Davis, and they are the ranking members on their piece.
Yes.
And remember, the first allegation was leaked by a right-wing news organization. That's what started this ball rolling on Conyers. I'm with Spencer. Let it all out. But if you do that, it's going to be a whole lot of people have to leave Congress.
Zero tolerance means consequences for everyone. No matter your contribution to our country, you do not get a pass to harass or discriminate. No matter how great the legacy, it is not a license to harass or abuse.
That was Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi on the House floor yesterday, sending a not-so-subtle message to Congressman John Conyers, the man she called an icon just on Sunday. The 88-year-old lawmaker has been under fire since last week when BuzzFeed News reported that in 2015, Conyers' office paid a former staffer $27,000 after she alleged she was fired for rejecting his sexual advances. Since then, two or more accusers have gone public with allegations of misconduct.
He's a very wicked, he's very mean, he's cruel. He's a very cruel person. He demeans people. He demeans people. He makes fun of them. He is a horrible person.
He became increasingly verbally abusive and would berate me loudly and over ridiculous things.
I want to discuss this with our panel today. Dr. Julianne Malveaux, economist and president emerita at Bennett College, and also host of It's Personal with Dr. J podcast. Julianne, what do you make of the Conyers situation versus the Franken situation versus the Roy Moore situation versus the Donald Trump situation?
I'm glad you put them all in the same sentence because really there are differences and there are similarities. And it's interesting to me that this black man is being treated quite differently than others. Now, sexual harassment, any of the sexual misconduct is a no. But those last two women that you had on, they didn't talk about anything really sexual. They talked about him being mean.
Deanna Mayer worked for Conyers from 1997 to 2005. She alleges that he inappropriately touched her on several occasions and tried to get her to share a hotel room with him in order to have sex. The congressman denies all of these charges, and yesterday his son came out in his defense.
It's very unfortunate to see him fight so long for so many people and to automatically have the allegations assumed true. And of course, with sexual assault, women are to be believed. But in this instance, he has no history of this. And I think that if we're not going to make someone like Al Franken resign, and we have evidence of him groping a woman while she was asleep at that, I should say, I think it's disconcerting to me to see the way my father's being treated after he's given so much to this country. Not just for black people, but for people alike. Fights for everyone.
Radio DJ. One nation, one station.
All right, because we've only got the first guest for a few minutes, I'm going to hurry up and go on and play this clip so you know who we are paying tribute to today. And as I mentioned before, I am Valerie Denise Jones. You're listening to the Judge Brown Show. But, yeah, this is a tribute to John Conyers. Here we go.
Former Democratic Congressman John Conyers has died. He was 90 years old. Conyers served his Michigan district, which included part of Detroit, for 52 years and saw 10 presidencies during his tenure. He resigned in 2017 after 2 women accused him of making unwanted sexual advances. Conyers was the longest-serving African-American member of Congress in history. He served as the chairman of 2 powerful House committees, Oversight and Judiciary. He also co-founded the Congressional Black Caucus in 1969. A source tells CBS News Conyers died in his sleep.
All right, so that's it. It was a very, very short clip. And as I mentioned, I'm going to go on and jump in and welcome our first guest. We got quite a few guests who are going to pay tribute to Mr. Conyers. But welcome, Attorney Patillo, 706-464. 706-464. It is a pleasure to have you. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Valerie?
I'm blessed. Thank you so much for putting up with me. I appreciate you so much. So I know you to be this wonderful celebrity attorney, celebrated attorney, and badass commentator, who hosts a show on Sunday, but I see you everywhere now, so I don't even know if I can give justice to your resume, so I'm going to let you do that. Tell our listening audience, who you are, because I'm sure, God, you've added quite a few titles since we last spoke.
Well, yeah, I'm still practicing law in the Atlanta area, so I'm still in primary criminal defense and civil rights law. I also host a radio program on News and Talk 1380 WAOK, and you can often see me doing cable news commentary on Fox News and other outlets.
Yeah. So tell us, how did you land the gig with Roland Martin? I absolutely love him. I use his clips all the time. But, yeah, I get so excited when I see you there, and I'm looking at you because you bring a lot to the platform. So what has that experience been like for you?
Oh, it's been great. Yeah, I've known Roland for years. Initially, I had him on my radio show, and back when he hosted his morning show that was nationally syndicated, I would go on there. And then when he transitioned to the TV One program, I was always a commentator on there, and then also on Unfiltered in his new web-based show in D.C. So I think it's really important for us all to always support each other's media endeavors, because as we know, if we're not the people supporting each other, then no one else is going to do it from the outside. So just as we've seen Tyler Perry build an empire when a lot of people didn't believe in him when he started, if we support each other, there's no limit to what we can do.
Yeah, definitely. And guys, it's Roland Martin Unfiltered. So please make sure that you go over to YouTube, stop by his house, show him some love, also join. What's the fans? It's Roland Martin Fan Club? Is that it? I can't remember. I just go on and do what I do.
Bring the Funk Fan Club.
Bring the Funk. That's the part I was missing. Yeah, I love the intro. He would probably think I'm crazy, but yeah, I actually played that twice before listening to the commentary. It's insane, but yeah, I just absolutely love seeing him cooking and dancing around. Yeah, huge, big shout out. So let's talk about Mr. Conyers, because I heard what you said on Mr. Martin's show, and that's the reason why I called you, because I thought that was a beautiful tribute, and I'm actually going to extend the audio that I played because there's a lot more to say. But what would you like to say? How do you want Mr. Conyers to be remembered?
Well, I think it's important for us in this new generation, the social media generation, the information generation, to not try to summarize people down to their lowest point. that in the media they like to say John Conyers died, he was accused of sexual harassment, and then get to his accomplishments. Let's understand that this man was in the Congress for over 50 years. He is the person who introduced the bill for the Martin Luther King holiday and introduced it every year for 20 years until it was signed into law by Ronald Reagan. He was instrumental in the passing of much of the civil rights legislation that we depend on today that built the African-American middle class that we currently enjoy. There would be no Barack Obama if it wasn't for John Conyers 50 years before that. John Conyers introduced a reparations bill, which he introduced every single session, and the H.R. 40 that we're currently discussing, the Study Committee on Reparations, that was initially his legislation that Sheila Jackson Lee picked up and ran with. So to summarize him down to just a couple sentences about something negative that he was accused of, I think does a disservice to all that he did for not just the community there in Detroit and in Michigan, but for African Americans nationally. He was a tireless advocate for our community. He was a tireless fighter who actually achieved change in this generation where we have many people who run for office, and all they're trying to do is be on magazine covers or be on social media, be part of the squad or whatever else. He was someone who worked through the legislative process. And if we think working with Mitch McConnell is hard or working with the Tea Party is hard, when John Conyers got to Congress, there were active Klansmen in the Congress and in the Senate. There were Dixiecrats. There were segregationists. And he was still able to get things done. Imagine how difficult that was in his day and time. And the same grace that we show people like Katie Hill, the congresswoman from California who had to step down for having sex with a bunch of her staff members, we should show that same grace to people in our community and not simply castigate them as if they did no good works in their life. Let's understand and appreciate that we do not have black history in this country without John Conyers. He is a crucial cog. You cannot write the history of black America without a full paragraph devoted to John Conyers. I want people to understand that, study, research, learn from what he did, and find out how you can replicate his works going forward for the next generation.
So as we examine this beautiful black leader and many others like him, Robert, why do you think it's the goal of our quote-unquote media to demonize and criminalize our black males?
There's a fundamental aspect of white privilege that still exists because I'm just using the Katie Hill example because that's current and in the media. There are articles and interviews and think pieces and all sorts of other things saying how she is the victim of her own actions because she is a young, blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman. So you see her as being innately a victim. This can't be her fault. Nothing she did is her fault because she is a young, blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman. When you grow up playing video games, Super Mario is trying to rescue the blonde-haired, blue-eyed white princess from the castle. When you watch cartoons as a kid, who's tied to the train track that the villain is trying to attack. It's the pretty, young, blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman. So we see them as innately being innocent. We see them as innately being victims as opposed to being the enemy. Contrast that with the way that African-American men are seen in this country, that no matter how high you go, no matter how much you achieve, no matter how you live your life, you're always a suspect. Chris Rock had an album, a comedy album in the 80s come out called Born Suspect. And so we're not given that same benefit of the doubt. We're not giving that same grace. We're not giving that same understanding. And because of that, the lack of understanding and grace and nuance, it's easy to boil us down to our worst moment, castigate us as simply being a summation of our mistakes, as opposed to understanding the nuances and understanding the vicissitudes of life. Think about it this way: Amber Geiger, the white woman who killed Botham Jean. Much of the media refuses till this day to call her a murderer, even though she was convicted of murder. On her sentencing sheet, it says murder. On her conviction sheet, it says murder. She is a murderer. She is in prison right now for committing a murder. When they report it on the news, they say the apartment killing or the tragic killing of Botham Jean, instead of saying that this woman murdered him because she's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman. But contrast that with O.J., who was never convicted of murder. Never. Nothing on his paperwork says murder. He was acquitted of the charges. He is completely innocent of murder. But whenever it is reported, O.J. is called a murderer in the media because they want to ensure that regardless of what the judicial system said, that he is seen in that light for the rest of his life. So this is the same reason we don't see the same grace extended towards John Conyers, because it's simply part of the white privilege in our community that we still see black men to always be a suspect, always be the villain in these cases compared to other groups.
Yeah, that's really, really sad. We got Dr. Randy Short on the line. I'm going to bring him in just a second. But, yeah, he brought it to my attention that they're looking to make a film about the late Fred Hampton. And in it, they have a scene where he is actually having sex with a man. So I don't know what this whole, why they're so fascinated, with just ruining people's legacy and just making stuff up. And it's really sad. What do you think that we could do to combat that? Like, do you have any suggestions for social media or fans of?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to make sure to tell our own stories. We cannot depend on anyone else to tell our story for us, because otherwise we'll be seen through their prism. The Harriet Tubman movie is coming out this weekend. Apparently in the movie, not to spoil it for people, but the evil person, the villain, the antagonist of the movie, is a black man who is a slave catcher and a crew of black slave catchers. Those are the villain. The secondary hero and love interest is the white slave master, who is shown as being benevolent, because we're allowing someone else to tell our story for us. So once we get into an understanding of, guess what, as much as you tweet about the Housewives or Love and Hip Hop or Cardi B or any of these other trivial pursuits, spend that same amount of time promoting and telling the stories of our own community, because only you can tell what really happened to your own people.
And real quick, because I want you to say hi to Judge. What do you say to the young people who may or may not be familiar with the people we're talking about? Do you have any suggestions as to what we can do to get them involved?
Absolutely. One of the biggest things is we have to tear down the statues, tear down the monuments, take these great figures of black history out of the clouds and bring them down to earth. When we talk to them from a not this mythical, Athenian standing on top of Mount Olympus view, but talk about John Conyers, the person, the young man struggling and fighting, how he worked his way to Congress, and so that they can see themselves in these individuals. Talk about the insecurities, the problems, the mistakes, the missteps, the human nature of them, because they have to understand that these people were indeed human just as them, and once they see the humanity in them, then they can see that they can achieve everything that they did and more.
Great. And go on and shout out your contact information on social media just in case we lose you, because I know we only got you for about 5 more minutes. So at this time, go on and get that information.
Sure, you can catch me on all social media at Robert Patillo. It says at RobertPatillo. Website is www.robertpatillo.com, and that has all my other contact information on it. So it's I'm the easiest person on earth to find.
Yeah, and I apologize I couldn't grab Cece Pennington for you this Sunday. I'm going to try and get her hopefully in the next few weeks. But she's on tour, and also I think she got some legal stuff going on with the artist that you mentioned. All right, so I just want you to say hi to the judge. 323-646. 323-646. Does that background noise? This could be fun.
Background noise.
But I'll just keep muting and unmuting. It's perfectly fine. Don't worry about it. We got Mr. Patillo
I'm on my way
on
to
the line.
Atlanta, and I'm on the highway, and my GPS just gave me a roundabout on a way I knew wasn't the right way. I had to find my way back. But anyway, how's everybody doing today?
Bless. Maybe you can stop by Robert's place while you're in Atlanta. That's where he's at.
Well, maybe, but I've got some other things I got to do there tend to before I have the luxury of options. But anyway, you know, a lot of this that we're talking about right now stems from the fact that as a people we are so unsophisticated, and the word is ignorant. I was talking to somebody, a group, about what is the contribution of your generation, and somebody said hip hop, and I said, so damn what? Huh? Well, I mean, what difference does it make? And besides, it's not really new. It's a rehash, a remix on stuff that's been going on for 50 years. And if you don't believe it, you go to a party and everybody from 17 to 70 is dancing to the same music. So what did you do? Well, hip-hop. Well, find something you did. And see, they don't have any perspective on reality in terms of what makes the world work, and entertainments become their sphere of reality. So when they talk about heroes and stuff, they're talking about entertainers and athletes, which historically have been distractions to keep people from focusing on what counts. And we don't have any leadership. We got all worked up over Trump and whether or not he's going to be impeached, and the answer is to that is just so what? Under the Constitution, the impeachment doesn't leave anybody anywhere. He has to be convicted by 2/3 of the Senate, which is not going to happen. So the question just becomes, why are you interested in and tolerating this farce? But you see, they don't know enough about an 11 or 12-page pamphlet that they could read anytime they want and get free, because that's the roadmap to being a citizen, but they don't know it. We are just generally ignorant and don't have any idea what's going on. So we get concerned about stuff when somebody gives us a story because we're so into entertainment. We don't get into what is actually going on, and we get blonde-haired, blue-eyed imagery. And by the way, it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. 50 years ago, it was really bad, but we came up with, I'm black and I'm proud. And nowadays, we've got that LGBT thing, which is into self-hate, so it's once again flagging the whole system into self-hate, hating what you are and hating what you want to be. So we're falling victim of that too, so we get off into this self-hate stuff once again, which is tragic since we got out of it, but we've fallen back in. All kinds of stuff. And then that movie on Harriet Tubman, that's just a dodge put out by sycophants of the white feminists who want to have a woman on some American currency. They don't care what denomination, and they don't care what race as long as it's female. So the question is are we falling into that trap too? You have Thurgood Marshall, Frederick Douglass, innumerable number of black men who ought to be on an item of currency, but we don't get it. A race's status is determined by the status of its men, not its women, who tend to be viewed as exotic sexual objects. So we get really bent out of shape about stupidity, and we need to banish some of our own ignorance by acquiring information and knowledge. But anyway, let me just listen. I'll put myself on mute, but, you know, give me a little warning when you're going to come back to me, because I got to go through a map to get into unmuting. But I'm going to listen. All right.
Yeah. I know you don't believe in prayer, but I'm always praying for your blessings regarding you. Well,
That's
you know, I got you,
us.
Jack. I got you,
We've been
Jack, over
praying it
here.
out
I'm just
for
praying for your
400 years,
safety.
and it hasn't delivered for us. So let's get a new one or something. But anyway, it is what it is.
He doesn't believe in prayer. I am praying silently for him. He is behind the wheel.
Are you kidding?
For those of you listening who just tuned in. I'm sorry?
Are you kidding? He doesn't believe in prayer?
No, he's not into the prayer thing.
I love the judge. Me either. Thank you.
Wow.
I'm done.
Wow.
I won't say any more. I won't say any more.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judge. Oh, when people say to
In
me,
the name of Jesus, I rebuke all of this. Welcome, Miss White.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here to share my views, and I'm also honored to listen to everyone else's views. And I wanted to piggyback on what the judge had to say about some things that even Mr. Conyers agreed with. And I did want to say also that I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. So I'm familiar with a few of the things that Mr. Conyers did that I really appreciate. And one of the things that he said was we should register to run for office. I was opposed to that at one time, but now I agree with that because we are becoming more and more aware of the African Americans that are in office that have not used their powers to break the hands of persistent poverty and drug trade in our communities, and the ability for us to self-identify. And that's a very serious thing for me because, as you know, in my family, knowing that we are American Indian, for years we were afraid to even say that that's who we are. And I think that we need someone in office who can push that agenda. That goes into the history also, which I appreciated about Mr. Conyers, because some of you may not know. I know Randy knows that I'm writing a textbook, and the name of the book is The Book of Griotology, An Interconnection to the Past. And the purpose of this book was to take our children back to the beginning where they can see themselves, because the narrative of our people has been as such that everybody else was here but us. If you look back in the world history books, you will see slightly brown people, but you won't see any really full-nosed, full-lipped, nappy-haired people in the beginning. And believe me, we were there. So I'm really appreciating the fact that when I did get to present the idea of this book to Mr. Conyers and running my spiel, so to speak, he didn't even question it. He said, without a doubt, I'll get it in the education system. So even though people have some negative things to say about him, whether it's warranted or not, I choose to remember that he wanted our children to be able to see themselves from the beginning up till now, and that he would support something that would do that.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Wow, I'm over here taking notes, so I apologize. Dr. Short, come in, and we got Judge Brown on the phone. We lost Attorney Patillo because he has another case, and then we got Ms. White. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I had a chance to work with Congressman Conyers between 1998 and 2001 as a volunteer, and in conjunction with the congressional office of my dear friend, the Honorable Dr. Cynthia Ann McKinney of the great state of Georgia. And Mr. Conyers, the first time I ever met him was he introduced himself to me at a CBC event that was on the situation of Black genocide in South America and in Latin America. And for several years, I had been working with other activists to bring to the attention of the Black public that there are Black people all over the Americas that are indigenous, which means the original people, the first people here as well. And then there are people who've been brought over from Africa, and they're being killed in significant numbers, marginalized and oppressed, in many instances worse than what we know in the United States. And there was a gentleman whose name is Luis Murillo Urrutia Gilberto, who is the head of a Pan-African party in a state on the Colombian coast, Pacific coast called Choco, which is about 99% black. And because he had stood up for his people, the white terrorists had captured him and showed him a picture of his wife and his 2 children. And they explained to him that they were going to kill his youngest child, then his oldest child, then kill his wife, and then kill him. So he fled to the United States. And both Cynthia McKinney and John Conyers made certain that he didn't have to go back to Colombia, therefore saved his life. And out of working with the Afro-Colombians that I knew in D.C., with Congressman Conyers' staff, in particular a woman by the name of Joanne Warwick. There's another guy whose name is Siegel. There was a woman named Cynthia Martin, if I'm correct, who's on his staff. And Conyers' office was always a place that you could go for help for people around the world. I will say this for Detroit, a lot of the black folks oftentimes are not engaged in pursuing the things that they want from people that get elected to office. It's almost assumed they're going to bring you a 2-piece with the biscuit and the drink once they get elected. And that's not true. Voting is only a small part of being engaged. You know, I live in Washington, and I can tell you there are practically no strong black lobby groups or political action groups that lean in and weigh in on all the Congress and the courts and everybody for an agenda for black people. So some of the things that folks would have liked to have seen happen in Detroit or in other areas has a lot to do with what we do not do after we voted for people. In fact, we'll continue to vote for them, even if we haven't pushed or presented anything for them to do. Now, that doesn't let anyone off the hook that you should want to do, but I can say this. If you went to Mr. Conyers' office with a concern, his staff would try to help you, no matter what it was. When you compare that to other black folks in Congress now, it's like a tale of 2 cities. So, you know, sexual harassment. In fact, I'd take some sexual harassment for some effective, responsive, engaged leadership, which we don't have. But I would say to you, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people alive today because Mr. Conyers cared about folks all over and did a lot of good. And it can't be taken. Y'all know I criticize people, but you have to over the long haul, you have to give him a passing grade. And that's hard to get for me. And it's not because I'm such a critical person, but because failure seems to be the choice of compromised, sellout, narcissistic leaders that we have. So I would just say to you that there are people in Haiti, in Honduras, in Colombia, in Ecuador, in Brazil, and even in the United States who've benefited from the legacy of service of Congressman Conyers.
All right, guys, just quick question, just because I'm curious. What is the difference betwixt John Conyers' legacy, Elijah Cummings' legacy, and the Judge Brown dynasty? Because it appears to me that the longer you stay chained to a system, the more opportunities you're afforded to sell your soul to it.
Well, too many of them got into politics to begin with to earn money. You don't earn money in politics. You're supposed to give service. And too many people are motivated by the wrong things. Many of them are narcissists. Too many of them are just selfish folk. And they wind up being multimillionaires off of a salary that is essentially civil service, which is wrong. We talked about Cummings, and Cummings was a crook. He and his wife both. Trump didn't lie when he said the district has been taken over by rats and roaches. It has. It's horrible. I've been through there. It's ridiculous. Nothing got done for the people, but they became multimillionaires off of a civil service salary and no investments. So I'm aware of some people too that have been elected to Congress and they're crooks. In fact, I'd say most of them are. There are some good ones, but the problem is the wrong people are being affected in these things. A local election here just passed. Somebody got in the race because they were bored. They didn't have any policy or anything else, but they were bored. You know, that's not why you do these things. Senior senator from Tennessee at one time, Republican Senator Dr. Bill Frisk, had never voted until he got 36 years old when he ran for U.S. Senate. So he registered to vote so he could run. He voted for one person in the primary himself, and on the general election he voted for one person. That's himself. He told me that to my face. And what did he do? He wrote the Affordable Health Care Act, known as Obamacare, and what it did is it made his family filthy rich. His family is the one that started Blue Cross, Blue Shield, etc. So did he get in to deliver good government? No, he got in because he wanted to make his family wealthy. What are people getting into it for? People want to run even if they're sincere, but are you prepared? What kind of reading have you been doing? What kind of life experience do you have? What is your naivety quotient? See, these things have to be considered when you talk about who's running for office. Oh, we need youthful vigor. No, you don't need youthful vigor. That's why the U.S. is falling behind, because younger is not always better. Look at China. They're getting ahead, but you damn near have to be 70 years old before you qualify for an office in China or a senior office, because they say you need youthful experience. Yes, you need that. You need youthful energy, but you need somebody to direct it. So we want figureheads and we want leadership all into one. We've got Kim Kardashian, who is a lightweight little amateur hoe doing amateur porn video with, what's his name, Ray J. Brandy's brother. And that makes her an expert on prison reform. We do these crazy things. Or her husband, Kanye Kardashian.
But I mean, Judge, to be fair, her father was an attorney, and she did, take legal courses, and she's around Ben Jones, and she entered the program, and
My oldest son's got a daddy who was a pretty damn good lawyer and a judge. He's a con man. That doesn't make a damn thing just because your daddy's done it. What did you do?
But
what experience did you apply yourself for other than get your booty expanded? So why does that make you an expert in any damn thing? And her father was so-so as a lawyer anyway. His main claim to fame was being on the OJ defense team as one of the sub-members under the direction of Johnny Cochran. Big deal.
But I mean, what I was saying is she did enter the program, worked with Dan Jones, put in the time, really studied diligently. I mean, she
that's not enough studying.
She did her thing. It wasn't like she just used her pretty to get ahead.
That's not what you see. That's just a prime example of a waste of time, because that's not where you look to your leadership. You don't look for somebody that's body beautiful. They might be. You don't look for somebody just intelligent. They might be, hopefully have to be. You look for somebody who has put in the time, paid the dues, gotten the hard experience. And until you get somebody that's been immersed in this for a long time, they don't know what they're doing. That's just like somebody read a medical book. That doesn't mean they can be a doctor. They've got to be an intern and a resident first. They've got to have a whole lot of carving they did on cadavers and live people in an emergency room under somebody's direction until they know it pat and they can do it on their own. We don't have that. See, that's what I'm talking about. And then we have this thing right now. We've got black lawyers, but for the most part, they don't have balls. Not like they used to. There are some, a few, but too many of them, there's some spineless little worms that got in it to make money. See, in other words, nobody really gives a damn if you made money. What did you leave as a legacy? Why should we know you? Why should history remember you? What did you do? See, that's where we run into it. And then you got to have courage and bravery. Are you willing to put it on the line, take a chance, put your life on the line? What kind of moral courage do you have? What kind of physical courage do you have? See, Thurgood Marshall was brilliant, but Thurgood Marshall was known for taking a baseball bat and going upside a racist head with it, and was known to carry a pistol. Do we have that now? Oh, well, racism loquitur. Thing speaks for itself. You know, we're so prim and proper.
Yes, sir. I get it.
But,
I totally get it.
We can do it, but we just have to reorient from, you know, everything's all right and it's all about the money and what kind of times you can have and, you know, drinking champagne and, you know, the whole 9 yards worth of glitz imagery that we've got in front of us. The Housewife series where we look at stupidity, foolishness, and ignorance, but we admire it because everybody's looking around to have a good time. You know, we spend too damn much time on good times. What was the popular thing back in the 70s? Good times. And then we find out how racist it actually was and how degrading, just an upgraded Amos and Andy farce. But that's what we look at. Blackish or mixed or what's the other one? Oh, Empire. You know, the gay party. You know, or let's get all the way live and call it that, pose. Why do we waste time on that kind of stuff? Or we love to go see Tyler Perry, big tranny dressed up like a fat, ignorant woman, and we love to go see it. See, we're pathetic. We've got to do better.
I understand. But, Judge, you know, I always look for silver lining, and Tyler Perry did, in my opinion, did more for black people and the entertainment stratosphere.
Yeah, more harm than a lot of other person. I don't have the person I can think of that's done as much or more harm as Oprah.
Right.
Yeah,
so that's what I'm saying. Like,
stupidity they put out, black folks bailing out Hollywood when they get in a financial bind. On what for? Medea. Man hates black men. And he badmouths black men as often as he can.
Mm-hmm. They all do, and it's ugly, and it's degrading. And it's interesting to show you how fraudulent that whole thing
Judge,
is.
You gotta
is that when
Dr. First Judge, put yourself back on mute because we can hear the car. I apologize. Okay, Dr. Short.
Just for a second, when Tyler Perry did make a movie where Medea wasn't there, Daddy's Little Girls, the ladies didn't like it because he showed some social reality that the father can be a good guy and the mom can be the bad guy. And he learned he needs to stick to being a tranny and doing stereotype instead of serious subjects because it's offensive. A lot of our people are addicted to pathology, but I want to answer and agree with what the judge was saying, and I want to do the difference between Conyers and Cummings. Nobody's perfect, not me and nobody. But the difference between, I'd say, Conyers and Cummings is that at least when Conyers got to Congress, he was put in a situation where he had to compromise and be against Adam Clayton Powell. And I don't think he was happy having to do that. And I think he spent the rest of his career doing his best not to be a backstabber because that was a deal that had to be cut, unfortunately. Whereas Elijah Cummings was made by a very wicked white man who can't die of cancer fast enough for me, by the name of Thomas V. Mike Miller, who is the great-grandson of Mary Surratt, who had Abraham Lincoln's head blown off. He's the one who made Elijah. Elijah was his lawn jockey. Maybe he was strong at one point, but Mike Miller, like Nancy Pelosi, or like any of these other party bosses in either party, they castrate or do a double mastectomy on the men and women that are black that get into politics, and they offer them money, sexual license, status, and stature in exchange that they don't do anything for the other black people. And I can assure you, and I know other people, and we've all had the same thing, someone has approached us and said, we like you. You're smart. You know what? Black people aren't that bad. In fact, you're a great one. But you know what? All of them aren't going to make it, but you can live really good if you just look out for number one. We can work with you, but you can't run around and stand up and speak up for other black people because it's just not practical. Blacks are never going to get in power. Blacks are never going to get free, but you can live really good if you look out for number one. And a huge number of so-called successful blacks, not just politicians, but a lot of these no-good preachers, no-good black business people, fake $2,000 suit-wearing, perpetrating lawyers, and negligent doctors and teachers and professors, they're all the same way. Just help yourself. That's the best you can do. Maybe help your family. And they have little societies and groups where they just help themselves. Their prayer is, God help we for and no more black folk. And that's what Cummings did. And the difference is Conyers helped lots of people. And whatever faults people are going to find with him, there are going to be a larger number of people who remembered the good that he did do. Even if he waned towards his later years, there was a period of time where he was on fire for black rights. There was no such period in Elijah Cummings' career. He was under the scrotum of Mike Miller, and the whole state of Maryland is under the scrotum of Mike Miller, and his widow is under the scrotum of Mike Miller. And he's under the, well, she may as well have a scrotum, of Nancy Pelosi. And these people are creatures who are the modern day slave masters and slave dealers. And the black oppression has been outsourced to people that look like us, who know every time they get an automatic deposit put in their account that they've turned their backs on black people to enrich themselves. And to me, if they wanted to make money, damn it, be a businessman or a businesswoman and leave politics and leave religion and leave service to the people who want to lift our folks up, but they won't do it because they recognize that the destruction of their own people is a way to unjust enrichment. It's a way to fame and notoriety. It's no different from the dope dealer, no different from the loan shark, no different from the slumlord or the sex-drunken cult leader. It's all the same.
All right, guys, this is going to be a shorter than normal show because the judge is traveling today. So what I want to do before we wrap is pay tribute to the late John Witherspoon.
Tributes are pouring in today for beloved actor and comedian John Witherspoon. Witherspoon, who had a prolific Hollywood career, died yesterday in Los Angeles. He may be best known for his role as rapper Ice Cube's father in the Friday film franchise.
Every time I come in the kitchen, you in the kitchen. In the damn refrigerator.
Here's Ice Cube. He tweeted overnight, "I'm devastated over the passing of John Witherspoon. Life won't be as funny without him." John Witherspoon was 77 years old. Too bad Vlad isn't still on the set because he was entertaining us with all the John Witherspoon lines.
Yeah, Vlad liked him
by heart.
Vlad liked him in Boomerang. I might have to check that one out,
That's
too.
right.
Yeah, we got a lot of people on the board. I don't know if you guys want to say anything. If you do, real quick, if you could press the number one.
Yeah.
If you'd like to say anything, definitely, of course.
Yeah.
Dr. Short?
Winky Dinky Dog. And I remember in house party when he was the neighbor that was tired of all the noise, and I remember, and he called the police and says, "Will you hold me?" He says, "I'll hold." And it was so funny. You could give him one line, or just a few, and he could make you know that he was in the film. Gifted. I always enjoyed seeing him. If I saw him, I'd start laughing at the sight of him. So he was gifted with the gift of humor and with making people laugh. And we need to laugh in this jacked up, coon-filled world. I certainly hope that when he's in heaven, there are no coons there, only serious people that can enjoy humor. I think part of going to hell for coons is there's nobody like Mr. Witherspoon to make them laugh.
Do you have you like to do impressions. Do you have a John Witherspoon impression or no?
No.
No? Okay.
I almost want to do Farrakhan. That brother was so gifted. He made everybody laugh and feel good. He will be missed. We'll send him to the great bean pie factory in heaven and send him a paper. All praises to Allah.
Oh my God.
Do you think President Trump has anything to say? Dr. Short?
Well, one of the things that I would say to anybody about him was he never paid his gambling debts, but we were so busy laughing, he was able to get away. It finally caught up with him.
And what about President Obama? Do you think he'd have anything to say?
I'm so glad I brought my daughters up to not want to marry someone like him. I'd rather them be with a white man that was serious. So I don't know what the big hubbub is. He never did anything. He didn't vote for me. He wasn't a contributor. Maybe Michelle likes him. That's her side of the family, not mine.
Why did you do that? Why did you say something negative as opposed to positive, Dr. Short?
Because I want people to know how Obama was. Obama dogged Michael Jackson when he died. Obama dogged a lot of people. So I want people to remember Obama was not necessarily a brother. I want that to get out of their mind, okay? When Michael Jackson died, he did not make me remember how he dogged Michael Jackson? And he called Kanye a jackass? And to me, it takes one to know one. And the way he motioned Elijah Cummings' wife with his finger and all, I read something into it. I'm not going to say what. The way he had his legs moving and all. There's a thing with Obama on the airplane. Y'all go look it up. She'll find it.
I've seen it.
Exactly.
I have no clue what you're talking about. None whatsoever.
Yeah, we'll get one. I got to sign off here, y'all. We got to make the call. The Queen just spoke. When this black woman speaks, I have to listen. So,
Amen. I don't blame you.
Sister,
All hail
God
to the
bless
Queen.
Judge. God bless all of y'all. And I will miss Witherspoon. And, God, I wish, and anything that I wish Conyers had done more. He's so much better than the younger ones. God, it makes you nostalgic for someone that you didn't think that didn't get everything done. At least he did something.
We're always interested in what you have to say about our live broadcasts. Please share your comments on our Facebook page or websites.